Most couples aren't fighting about the dishes, the money, or the sex. They're fighting because they don't feel heard and nobody ever taught them how. Whether you're outside grilling, changing diapers, or just trying to catch a breath, the Young Dad Podcast is your spot for real conversations about fatherhood, manhood, and everything in between. I'm your host, Jay, and I sit down with dads, experts, and everyday people to talk about the joys, the struggles, and the lessons that come with raising kids and building a meaningful life. From mental health and relationships to faith, family, and the funny stuff only dads understand, YDP is here to remind you that you're not doing this alone. So grab a juice box, grab a snack, kick back, and join the conversation because fatherhood doesn't come with a manual, but it should come with a podcast. Marriage doesn't come with the user manual, neither does fatherhood, like you just heard in the intro, and most of us are trying to build families without ever learning how to communicate under pressure. And so, Rafi, after working with couples for years, what's one thing most dads are trying to say in conflict but don't know how to put into words?
It's a great question. I think it varies so much what the conflict is, but at the end of the day, dads are just trying to do their job well. We all just want to be a good dad, want to be a good husband, want to make it work well, and trying to get that across, trying to say, hey, I really want to help. I want to do this right. And often we feel like we don't know how or what the best thing to do is. And even when we try, somehow it doesn't land. And so trying to communicate that idea like, hey, I really want to help. And how do I do that? How do I be the best dad I can be? That's a tough thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It can be difficult to because you do want to help, you do want to do the best, you do want to do your part, but at the same time, like you don't know what you don't know, but you also don't know how to get to that point to where you want to be at the same time.
Yeah. And then you find out that, hey, there's mom over there who has a different idea of how it should be. Yeah. I mean, there's conflict is normal. Conflict is normal in a marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. And it happens all the time, and you learn. It's one of those learning things, right? It's not a reason to give up on the marriage, it's a reason to learn through everything. And so, Rafi, let me introduce you to the people, and then we'll jump into the conversation a little bit more. So today's guest is Rafi, marriage counselor, author of the Couples Communication Handbook, dad of 4 daughters. It's someone who's made it his mission to teach the communication skills none of us were ever taught. Rafi helps couples stop arguing in circles and start actually understanding each other with tools that are practical, human, and yes, sometimes funny. This isn't therapy speak, this is real life marriage. So, Rafi, I would say like most couples argue, or when they argue, they're usually are rushing to fix something, right? They usually just want to jump right to a conclusion, right to a fix, right to the solution, right? But that's rarely what's needed. Sometimes it's needed to get right to the solution, but rarely, sometimes there's something deeper there. So why do people feel less safe in conversation the harder they try to fix the problem?
Well, one of the things I try to teach people is that you can't fix a problem you don't understand. And that seems pretty simple, but we all end up doing that, because we think, oh, the problem is the dishwasher or, which kid said what and what we need to do about that. And really, the problems that we're arguing about is how do we feel about that situation? And am I being an effective dad? Am I being heard in this marriage? All these things that lie underneath whatever the presenting problem is. So we try to step in there and make the problem go away. Like, okay, I'll load the dishwasher differently next time. But the problem is that I feel like I'm being controlled by my wife, or she feels like I don't listen to her, or whatever these things are. And so that's where the fight is. And so when you run in and try to solve the immediate problem, we kind of just skip over what's actually hurting people, what's actually bothering us. And so it doesn't quite get fixed. And so it piles back up again.
Yeah. And so then it runs us into the circles like, well, I did it differently like you wanted me to. And so it's done. Like it's
Right.
done.
Okay. Fine. I'll do it the way
Problem
you want.
solved.
Yeah. And you think problem solved. But that's not the problem again is not how you squeeze the toothpaste or do the dishwasher, put the dishes away, whatever it is. The problem is the interactions, the relationship, the feelings we have about it. And so rarely do we stop to go under there and figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and why is it's so important to go in there and try to figure out the why behind it, right? Because there is a why behind, those big reactions, right? Or whether there maybe was some conflict over the dishwasher or like you said, squeezing the toothpaste or doing a certain way, a certain thing a certain way, right? Or a certain feeling. And it's like for men, we're saying, it's like we just do it differently and we fix the problem, we find the solution and we move the root cause of the problem.
Yeah, the first thing is to slow it down. There's some conflict. Something came up about the mess, the dishwasher, the dishes, whatever it is, and we want to run in, fix the problem, or we start arguing about it. And the answer is like, hey, this does not need to be dealt with right now. You know, if I'm mad about, where you put the dishes or what you said to the kids or whatever, almost never is it an emergency that you need to deal with right now. You can wait until later. You know, a common thing is mom doesn't like the dad yelled at the kids. Okay, fine. She does not need to say that right away. Dad doesn't like that mom, gave the kids another dessert. Okay. You know what? The fact that they might have another scoop of ice cream is less of a problem than the parents getting into an argument right then and there about the ice cream. So just holding on, taking a break, coming back to it later when people are calmer, that is a really important way to be able to actually talk about the things that matter instead of getting into an argument about a scoop of ice cream and then never actually getting to the point of what actually matters here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more so kind of picking your battles, right? And if there's something that's important right now, or can it wait? Does it really need to even become something?
Well, I tell people if you wait a little bit, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, you'll find that about half the things that bothered you really weren't that big a deal. You were tired, you were hungry, someone made a mistake. But then there's half of things that are a big deal, and you should talk about them. But now you're in a better position to talk about it. You
Yeah.
can't do that when you're all ramped up and upset about the extra scoop of ice cream. But you can do it a lot better the next day when you say, you know what, honey, can we talk about the dessert situation? You're in a much better position to have a conversation about that that actually works.
Yeah. But even then, there's I feel like there's a concept of just like letting some things go that just aren't, like, worth having, rather just aren't worth fighting over, you know? It's like, if it is a little scoop of ice cream, like, you can always let that go and then just ask your significant other, just saying, "Hey, like, why did you give him an extra scoop of ice cream?" Versus saying, "Hey, I didn't like that." Versus just saying, Why?" Like, "Oh, because he came home and he let me know that he got a great score on his math test, and you weren't home yet, and I told him he would get an extra scoop, and no big deal," kinda thing. And so I think it's important to lead that follow-up conversation, not so much that it, like, bothered you, but trying to get curious and more so like, "Why? Why did you do that? Why are these things happening?" Kinda thing.
Yeah, everybody has a reason why they do
Mhm.
things. Very few people are so out of their minds that they're just acting totally randomly. Even if
Yeah.
you don't understand, there's probably some reason why your partner did what they did, and that is good to explore. And it can still bother you. Yes, there's plenty of things that we can let go of. You're allowed to be bothered by that. The fact that I don't like that you gave another scoop of ice cream doesn't mean we have to have a fight about it. We can actually disagree about that and still be okay, so long as we're willing to talk about it calmly, respectfully, maintaining connection instead of turning it into an argument over ice cream.
Yeah. No, 100%, and it's really just about I think this even is true with our kids, as it is with our spouse, like, pick your battles, right? Like, not everything needs something. If it really, really bothered you, like you're saying, right, you can have a conversation about it. If it really didn't bother you and you would still wake up the next day and it's already out of your mind, it
Yeah.
probably wasn't that important to begin with, right?
Right. That's why it's good to wait because everything seems urgent in the moment. But if you wait a
But yeah,
little bit, come back the next day, some of it just isn't. There's a lot of things you can let go of, but I don't want to encourage people to try to let go of things that really bother them. Right. In the ice cream case, it could be that dad doesn't care about the ice cream so much as the fact that his wife never listens to him. He says, okay, one scoop of ice cream, and she says, oh, well, I'll give it two. Like that's the problem underneath it. So, yes, you can let go of the ice cream, but you may not want to let go of the important things in your relationship. Like, are we on the same team here?
yeah,
And so being able to wait until things calm down a bit will help you get to that point of talking about the important things instead of getting into an argument about how many scoops of ice cream Junior should have. That's not where the issue is.
yeah. No, it's deeper than that, right? And those things are just like kind of the little those are just like the little triggers, right, that are coming along the way that trigger those deeper things that you've been holding on to that then blow up those really small things. Because those really small things are just micro moments, right? But then when you actually get to it, when it's actually time to shine, if you would, then you something little like that happens, as simple as ice cream. I think that's a good analogy here. But something as simple as ice cream happens, and then boom, we're into a full blown, full fledged like fight, and it's like popping off. Things are going crazy, and it's just chaos after that. You're arguing, you're fighting, you're yelling at each other. It's the whole thing, all because of the ice cream was the trigger to this deeper issue that you've been holding on to, that you haven't been talking about, that you haven't been communicating at all.
Yeah, I think everyone can relate to this idea of like, oh, we had this massive fight about nothing. Like, if you can even remember
Yeah.
what it was about, but like, you're embarrassed to say what you fought about because it was such a small thing. But the reality is, that's just the pointer to what actually the issue is. Again, the issue is not how many scoops of ice cream Junior should get. The issue is, are we working together? Are we on the same team? Does my opinion matter? Those are important things in a relationship. How many scoops of ice cream does not really matter to your relationship. What matters is all those bigger questions that we rarely get to ask and answer.
Yeah, and it goes back to being heard, right, versus being right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of dads feel or think that leadership means having answers, right? Like we're men, we have to have answers,
Yeah.
right? That's just how we're created. We're answer creatures. But
Yeah.
at
We strong.
home, it doesn't always mean that. It means listening. And so what's the difference in your opinion between hearing your partner and actually helping them feel understood?
Right. So it's one thing to hear them, and it's another thing for them to know and to feel they're being heard. Right. If I sit there and I go, maybe I'm hearing, maybe not. One of the skills I teach people is to reflect back what they're hearing without putting their own opinion in. So if you tell me you're upset about the ice cream last night, and it bothers you because you felt unheard or you specifically told me not whatever it is, I can reflect back and say, okay, you're mad because you said we're going to have one scoop of ice cream and I didn't listen, and so you feel unheard and disrespected. So if I reflect back to you, now you know that I'm getting what you're saying, and that helps you feel heard, and that helps us both feel like we are in connection despite the fact that we are disagreeing here. And that's really important. If I start putting in my 2 cents when you talk about what's going on for you, say, well, you said this and I said that. So now we're in an argument and nobody's feeling hurt. So the first thing is I'm going to listen, and then I'm going to reflect back what I understood you say, just understanding what you said. It doesn't mean I agree with it. Doesn't mean I like it. It just means I got the message. And if I didn't get the message, we'll try again. Because that's a normal thing too. I don't live in your head. I don't know exactly how you're feeling. You do your best to express it to me. I do my best to understand it. And we keep going. And that's how we get where we need to go.
Yeah. But it's so easy to, like, misunderstand those things or think we understood it, but then we're literally told, "You don't understand." It's like, you're right, we don't understand. You don't get it. Like, we don't get it. The other person doesn't always get it, right?
That's why the reflection process really helps. You tell me how you're feeling. I will do my best to understand that. And I say, you're feeling this, this, and this. And maybe I'll get some of it. Maybe I'll get it partially. You say, well, yes, it's A, B, and C, but also there's a little bit of D and E in there. Like, oh, okay, D and E also. And so now we're getting closer in our minds. Like, I'm getting it. I don't mean I agree or I like it. It means I'm getting what you're saying. And, I'll never fully get it because I'll never live inside your head. But the closer I can get, the more in sync we are. And the more effort that I put into trying to get it, the more I really care how you feel. And that's really important.
Yeah. I don't think any man wants to live inside a woman's brain
Yeah,
or a woman's head. No man wants that. So we should be grateful that that doesn't happen. But is there any element of, like, curiosity that comes into this to help us be more curious, to understand, like, where they're coming from, or just to help us put the picture together better, or
yeah, as like we said, we're fixers. We want answers. If you try to frame the problem as what does my spouse think and feel, that's what I got to figure out. If you can get an answer to that, you're in a good place. So that's where the curiosity comes in. You can say, you know what? They probably have some way of seeing this. They probably have some reason for doing what they did. There are so many situations where we see it differently. You think, Junior was really upset last night. And I say, no, he seemed like he was acting pretty normal for, a 4-year-old or whatever. It's okay. We don't need to argue about that point. If I can understand how you see it, then I can probably understand why you did what you did. You yelled
Mhm.
and got upset and punished, whatever it is. Okay, I didn't think that was necessary, but I see how you saw it. Let me understand that more. You thought he was being out of bounds. You thought he was acting up. Uh-huh. So you were stressed out. Okay, I get it. That makes sense. That doesn't mean I agree or I see it the same way, but it makes sense to me. That's the part where I validate what you see, what you thought and felt. Yeah, I can see why that's stressful for you. You saw him acting out terribly. You got stressed out. You reacted harshly. Look, I don't agree with your perspective, but I totally get why you felt that way. Again, even though we disagree, we are in sync, and that's a great place to be.
Yeah. There's just an element of validation here, right? Like, most times people just wanna be validated. They just
Yeah,
wanna be validated for what they're saying, what they're trying to express, what they're going through. Like, they just want that validation piece, and they just want that to be that's kinda all they want in the end, is that they just wanna be validated. They just wanna be heard, they just wanna feel like they're not crazy. They just want you to see what they're seeing or anything like that, and that can go a long ways in all this, right? That can honestly avoid a whole argument. It's just validating.
yeah. It's a key point, right? People think that they are being called on to agree, and that's really not needed. Sometimes we feel like we want our partner to agree with how we see it.
Absolutely, we
Yeah,
do.
yeah, but the reality is we can't have that. If I remember that Junior, started yelling and screaming, and you thought he was speaking in a normal voice, we cannot resolve that question. We can argue about it all day long, but I
Mhm.
cannot make you change how you remember the facts. But
Yeah.
what I can do is ask you to say, you know what, given that I see it this way, can you understand how I felt and how I reacted? Right? I can understand that. Maybe I think you're wrong about the situation, but we will never resolve that. And so that's not the place to argue. People think if I could just convince my spouse that it happened the way I thought, it would all work out. But you can't. You cannot convince them, just like they can't convince you. I know that he said this at this time. Okay. So what are we going to do? We have different memories. That's okay. I respect how you remember it. I know if that's how you see it, no wonder you feel like this. I get it.
Mhm.
That takes us a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a totally different element here too that we're talking about because it's an agree to disagree, right? We're agreeing to disagree. And everyone's perception of a situation is gonna be different. Like, I'm gonna remember it one way, I'm gonna catch things differently. You're
Yeah.
gonna catch different things that were said or how they were said or interpret them a certain way based on your experience. I'm probably gonna interpret them different way based on what I was experiencing in that same moment. There's things that I've just missed completely that I didn't hear because I was, like, zoned out while I was driving. I was,
Yeah.
like, zoned out doing something else. I didn't hear it, I didn't catch it. Um, and then my wife's, like, upset about something one of the kids said, and I'm like, "What happened? Like, I don't what what just happened?" And she's like, "You didn't hear it?" I'm like, "No, I was zoned out over here doing whatever." And
Yeah,
then
and
it
we have to accept that the other person has the perspective and the experience they have. I
yeah,
cannot meet you have a different experience than you had, but I can validate yours and you can validate mine, and we can move forward with that. Right? It's not just we're going to agree to disagree, but I'm going to validate your position. You're going to validate mine. That makes sense that you see it that way. And then we're going to go from there.
yeah, 100%. And so this kinda leads us into a bigger conversation, right? We're kinda setting the ground for some things to do, right? Validation, understanding, taking a break from the conversation, waiting before we react, trying to have a conversation, being curious, reflecting, pausing, but this all leads into talking about the hard things, right? Sex, money, parenting, and these
Mhm.
topics aren't dangerous, right? These are not dangerous topics. These are all topics that have to be talked about, right? But the dangerous part of it is having silence when things go quiet, when things go silent.
Yeah.
So what are some ways outside of the things that we've talked about that couples can talk about the hardest topics without blowing things up? Because these are all very sensitive. You could even throw politics in there, right? Sex, money, parenting, politics,
Family.
family, in-laws, relationships, all the things, right? There's a lot of big topics, right? There's probably a big 5: sex, money, parenting, family, and politics. Probably the top 5. Maybe religion and the riddle 6, okay, there's a lot, okay, what we're getting at here. But how can we talk about these things without these topics blowing up into a huge, huge argument? Because there's couples that get divorced over these things when it really, in reality, it's one thing out of 99 things that feels like 100 things, but it's one, but then it blows up to a point that just can't be resolved. How do we not have that happen?
Right. So actually, we've talked already about many of the components that go into this. The first thing
Mhm,
is wait until later. Okay. That's the first thing because otherwise you'll get nowhere. The second part of that is if you're having a conversation that starts to go sideways, take a break, come back later. Anytime that you're getting emotionally ramped up, we're not going to have a good conversation. So all of our conversation skills depend on us being able to stay in a calm frame of mind to an extent. That doesn't mean you have to be a robot. It just means you have to be in control of yourself. Because we all know once you get into that red zone, you start saying the nasty things, the things that can't be unsaid. We don't want to get there.
"I
Take a
hate your mom anyways."
you can't unsay that one. And so we gotta make sure we don't get there. So you take a break as needed, even in the middle of the conversation. Hey, I need a break. I'm gonna lose it. You walk away, come back later. And then when we come back, you want to sit down, you want to have a conversation about parenting, religion, politics, sex, whatever it might be. Hey, honey, can we have a conversation? I'd like to talk about something. And then we divide the conversation into I'm going to speak and you're going to listen, just like we were saying before. And then we'll switch, but we're not going to both share our perspectives at the same time because that's called an argument. Whereas if we sit down, I said, okay, here's how I feel about the parenting situation. I'm really concerned that Billy is having trouble in school because of da, 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 and I'm really worried for his future. So I'm going to tell you how I feel, not what I think the solution is, not what the ultimate truth is. Here's my perspective and here's how I feel about it. And your job is, like we said, you're going to listen. You're going to reflect back in your own words. You're going to say, oh, so Ralphie, you feel this, this, and this. Yeah, okay. You're going to validate, which is, oh, yeah, I can see why you'd feel that way. And then you offer some empathy, which is, oh, it's so hard. I can understand why it's stressful. Man, that sucks. Which, by the way, is like the main acronym that I use in my book is called LOVE, VE. It's brilliant. I know. Listen, reflect in your own words, validate, and empathize. That's how you remember it. Love, right? So once you go through those steps as the listener, now I feel heard. I feel cared about. Now I can switch and I can hear you. So I say, yes, thank you for hearing me out. Jay, how do you feel about the situation? And you say, well, I'm really not so worried. I'm more worried that, if we push him too hard at school, he's going to get depressed. He's going to get upset. So that's your concern now. And I'll reflect that back. Okay. So you're worried this, that, the other. So when we get to the end of this conversation, whatever the topic is, I understand you and I care about the problem you're having. You understand me and you care about the problem I'm having. Now we're in a much better place to deal with it than if we just ran in and argued about who's right.
Yeah. Yeah, we both have a common goal, right? Like, we're both worried about the same kid, about the same thing, just the way, like, the paths we're taking, they're not the same path. We're just taking separate paths to come back to the same problem, right?
Yeah, we all have
But
the same.
we care. We both care about the exact same thing. In the end, we both care about how Junior's doing in school. That's what we
Yeah,
ultimately care about. But the reasons why we feel like he's behind that or struggling in school or not doing well are totally different, but both valid and both two sides that need to be seen because I'm going to be interacting with my kid one way. She's going to be interacting with the kid another way. And those experiences that the kid's going to have and the things that they express to one parent are going to be different than the things they express to the other parent, and that's just how things go, right?
yeah.
And that's just
We also
natural.
sometimes prioritize differently, meaning we all care about Junior and their well-being, but maybe you care a little bit more about their academic success. And I'm less worried about academics, but I'm worried about his friends. And so
Mhm.
we both care about both, but maybe we prioritize differently. And I really am worried that he's not going to have enough friends, and you're worried that he's not going to do well in school. Okay, I can validate your concerns. You can validate mine,
Yeah.
and we can keep going. And even though we're not 100% the same person, we still have common themes and common goals, and we can work together to make sure everybody gets what they need.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and that's what's important, right? Like, we can all get there at the same time. Not at the same time, but in time, we can all get to the same place and how we go about things because the awesome thing about having 2 parents is that you can accomplish multiple things at once, is that you don't have to just accomplish one thing at a time. You can both attack a problem at the same time and kinda come at it from both ends,
Yeah,
right?
we don't need to be exactly the same.
Yeah, and those priorities can be different. And then the kid knows, "Okay, mom's worried about the friends I'm making, dad's worried about my grade." So now the kid's thinking about 2 things that they need to be a little bit more conscious of versus just one. It's like, okay, both my parents are just up my ass about my grades, right? They're just up my butt about my grades all the time, and it's so annoying. But they never say anything about my friends, and I know I don't have the best friends, but they never say anything about that. So they're probably fine with my friends, but then I have terrible friends in the end, right? Like, my friends are always mean to me, and they always push me around and bully me kinda thing, and I always get in trouble for them, but they don't care about that, even though I talk to them about that. So now, the kid, if you go back all the way to the kid now feels, "Wait, so they care about my grades, they're hearing me about my friend, and now they're both addressing one of the 2 things with me, and so I feel double seen, double important, double validated in all this, just because mom and dad had a conversation and they were able to not argue and they were able to talk about these things in a way that then they came together, which then made Junior feel supported and heard and validated through all of it.
Yep, that's our
Beauti
goal.
Beautiful how it all works. Does it always work like that? No. Would it be great if it did? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to increase our working together and our teamship. It's it's hard work, and that's the whole goal of working together as married people.
Yeah. So point of marriage, right? Like you have to learn to work together. Like
Yeah,
you learn to work together, you learn to get along, you push through the hard times. I mean, you take vows better for worse, sickness and health, hardship, rich, poor, anything, right? Like you take those vows to work through all those things together. Some of the shit's hard. I mean, that's just how it is. There's some things in marriage that are
it's
just
supposed to
freaking
be,
hard.
right? It is supposed to be work.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think if it's work, then something's wrong. Like, no, no, it
Yeah.
is supposed to be work to work on a relationship and to make it be what you want it to be.
Yeah. It's supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, everyone would be married and not talk about how hard being married is and divorce rates and everything like that,
I wouldn't have a job.
right? You wouldn't have a job. Exactly. But is it, I guess, kind of a follow-up question here. When you hear this, it's like, okay, well, what if we don't go to a place where we're resolved when we go to bed? Is it okay to go to bed unresolved?
Yes, yes, I tell people, "Go to bed angry. Go to bed angry every night. It's fine." Well, it's not fine if you're going to bed every night, but yeah, sometimes people think you have to, never go to bed angry is the advice they got. It's a terrible idea because we've all been there. It's midnight and you're angry at each other. So you try to fix it, you try to talk about it. What happens? Now it's 2 in the morning. You're still angry, and now you're tired the next morning to boot. It's not a great strategy. It is okay to be mad at each other. Being mad is not a problem against the relationship. Being mad at each other is part of a relationship. And how you deal with it is part of the relationship. So yeah, you are not going to resolve everything that night because there are some problems that don't have easy resolutions. And by the way, child rearing is one long extended problem.
Yeah.
It's not like, okay, Junior doesn't have good friends. What are you going to do about it? Let's figure it out in the next 30 minutes. Like, no, that is an ongoing conversation. That's an ongoing set of problems. It's going to be a set of
Mhm.
ongoing conversations. You don't have to resolve it tonight. You can be in disagreement, go to sleep a little bit grumpy, and wake up the next morning feeling, okay, we can talk about this better now.
Yeah. Um, One thing I recommend to, like, my guy friends and stuff sometimes is, and this is just a guy to guy thing, I'm like, "Have you thought about, just, throwing her around and, to adjust her and then talk about it after you guys are all cleaned up in a better mood?" And it's
What's their response?
not ideal, but it can help.
Is that what's their response to that?
They just laugh. They laugh, and they think it's funny, and they're like, "You know what? I'm gonna try that." And then they try it one time, we're like, "Wow, we got through that argument quick." It's not a lasting solution.
What exactly is the solution you're proposing there? I think I must have missed it.
The solution I'm proposing there is to participate in practicing of making a child.
That
Participating in the act,
okay,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, making a child. Yeah, yeah, it's good. It takes work for that one also, but at least the work is fun there.
Yeah, exactly, but then do that before you argue. Then this is a joke from How I Met Your Mother, but pull the naked man on her, see what happens, and then if it happens, talk about it after, and both of you guys are gonna be in a much better headspace.
That's true. Yeah, the problem is, well, if you're already mad at each other, it can be hard to pull it off.
Yeah, you're
Uh,
not,
right.
not
Yeah,
gonna happen every time.
yeah.
Let's see. Back to the topic here. Are there any great communication habits that dads can model at home without even realizing it that their kids will carry into their future relationships? So any
Yeah.
communication habits that dads already probably model that they don't realize that their kids are going to carry into their future relationship?
Yeah, that problem solving thing we do is really it's a nice idea. We mean well, but often it takes the form of sort of stepping over somebody. Meaning someone comes to me, your wife comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm a little bit bothered by this." You go, "Okay, I'll fix it." Right? "Hey, I don't like the way the dishwasher is." You go, "Okay, fine, I'll fix it." Like that problem solving mentality often again it forces us to skip over the depth of the problem. Whereas if we change it from, okay, here's the answer. Junior comes up to you and says, "Dad, I'm having a problem on my math homework." And you say, "Well, let's look at it and I'll figure out the answer." Or here's what you got to do. Read that. The first thing to do is hear them out, validate them, and say, "Oh, yeah, that's tough." Just that could be a helpful place of accepting what they're telling you. So rather than jumping right into problem solving mode, starting always in listening mode is a really helpful communication approach that works on the marriage, works with your kids, and definitely teaches them how they ought to be communicating for the long term.
Yeah, I love that. And that's something that we're already doing because we're
Yeah.
fixers. But it's a great thing. I think just adding in those couple extra steps will just make them so much more effective, right? And just help them so much as they continue to grow and learn.
Yep.
Anything else you wanna Go ahead.
VE, those are the steps. Listen, reflect in your own words, validate, and empathize.
Yeah, I love it. It's so simple, so easy. You should write a book about that. I'm just playing. Is there anything else from the conversation today that you wanna mention, before we jump into the dad zone and start to think about wrapping this thing up?
I mean, I could go on, for hours and hours. I do this all day. I think, we got the really critical points out, which again, wait until later to deal with the big issues and then start with listening, reflecting, validating, empathizing before you try to fix it. When you try to fix it, you skip over all that good stuff. Once you get the understanding of what the full problem is, then solving can be done. And then it's a lot easier. You'll find that the arguments that you have can be solved a lot more quickly if you go through this first, because then we're already 80% of the way there.
Yeah, yeah, and we wanna get closer to a solution than we do, or than we
Yeah.
don't. We don't wanna stay too far away from it. We wanna make sure that we're getting closer and not further away from a solution, because we
And
don't want no
again,
one wants to fight forever.
right, but the solution isn't necessarily the end of the fight. The point is to talk about it well because we may not agree. There are many issues we will never agree on, right? Like how much time to spend with
Mhm.
your mother. You want more and I want less. That might be the way it is for the rest of our marriage, but if we communicate well about it, like we're describing here, we can stay in contact, we can stay in a relationship, and it's a good marriage, even though we disagree. So the end goal is not necessarily the solution to any one problem, it's staying in connection while we have these problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. G Yeah, 100%. We have to stay connected to each other, right? Because when we lose that connection, that's when things start to roll downhill and things get out of hand and things happen in marriage and aren't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
We don't wanna have that drift. That space for drift is should be super minimal at all times.
Yeah, and coming back to reconnect over and over is an important part of that process.
So, what are ways to, like, reconnect? So, let's say, like, after an argument, what are some good ways to reconnect with our spouse, with our significant other? Let's say things blew up, we argued, we fought, and then we finally calmed down, we communicated. Now we're in the process of reconnecting, repairing. What are some simple ways that we can do that?
I say put it right back through the machine, right? We had a fight last night. So now help me understand, how did you see that fight? What was bad for you about it? You felt steamrolled, that you did not think I was listening, et cetera, et cetera. So then we put it through the machine. Okay, let me listen. Let me reflect. You felt this. You felt that. I'm really sorry you felt that way. That must stink to be in a fight with your spouse and feel totally unheard. Right? We put it back through the machine and I hear you and I care about what your experience was. Then you hear about my experience. I thought I was trying to communicate and you didn't listen to it, all whatever it is. And so now you hear where I am. Now again, we're in sync. I understand your problem and I care about it. You understand my problem, you care about it. We are feeling connected. So even when the conversation doesn't go well, we come back, we put that through the machine. I'll listen, you'll listen, we'll be in a better place.
Yeah. So even after that, after you've gone through the machine, what are some good ways to can you continue to repair or, reconnect after that?
Yeah, then I mean, then it's up to the couple, whatever suits them. Do a hobby together, sit down, chill out, talk about nothing, play a game. If once you're feeling connected, any of the things that we think of, that make us feel having a good time and feeling together, that's great. Go for a walk, go to a movie, whatever it is. Now that you feel her, that awkwardness, that distance is gone, and the usual connecting activities feel great.
Definitely. Do you feel like more of these arguments happen when couples don't feel that connection, or when that connection's kind of not hasn't been prioritized, or isn't kinda, like, top of the list to where either party isn't feeling, like, most important, or, like, you're not, like, trying to connect with me, you're not working to connect with me at all?
Yeah, if I feel unheard, if I feel disconnected, it breeds more fights. I'm trying to be heard. I'm trying to reach out. I'm trying to get in contact with you. And if I feel like everything I say it turns into an argument, I feel very distant. And the more that we can practice good communication and good connection, the fewer times we're gonna have these horrible, disconnecting, uncomfortable fights.
Yeah, which makes sense, right? Because if we're connected, we're gonna feel more, like, confident to, like, slow down, we're gonna feel better about slowing down, having the conversation, communicating in a healthier way, and being able to communicate our needs, right? Because we already feel kinda, like, safe, we already feel heard, we already
Yeah.
feel important, and we feel like it's gonna go over well, that it's gonna be received well on the other end because we're connected, right?
100%. A great place to be in a marriage.
So I guess that begs me the question, like, how important is it for married couples, really of any length, especially after children, I wanna say, to make sure that they're prioritizing time for them, right?
And yeah, I think sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in taking care of the kids and managing their schedules, and we think that that's the priority. But I think that the kids will get the most out of everything. The parents are in sync. I think it's really important to take time, make sure that there's regular time for spending together, regular time for talking about the issues, and just making sure that that relationship stays strong because that's what the kids need more than anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I love it. Um And those are all just kinda softball questions there just to for the men to just remind you guys, right? Like, it's your spouse is so important, like, your guys' connection is super important, especially if you are feeling that drift, you're not feeling that connection. That's just the breeding ground for resentment, right? That's the breeding ground for, that drift to happen, emotional drift, physical drift, and that drift to happen, and it doesn't happen overnight. Right? It does take time, but it's these moments of unintentionality, like where it's like, okay, well, we're not going on dates, we're not spending time together, we're not doing things together like we used to, and it starts to drift, and that space between you guys gets wider, and then other things fill it, and that's when those awful things can happen that we don't want to think about happening. But that's why it's important to communicate and to force that connection because it may feel uncomfortable at times. You may not want to always connect, but it's like still putting that intentional effort out there. Because after a while, you guys are already sitting down. Maybe you go out to dinner. You guys are finally putting the phones down, starting to connect, and then you remember, okay, this is why I love this person. This is why we got married in the first place. This is the person I love and connected with and chose to be with for the rest of my life, spend the rest of my life with, that I wanted to connect with, that I want to be with. And it's just it takes those moments of intentionality to get us there.
Yeah, those are nice moments.
Yeah. 100%. All right. When I say it, I mean it this time. Anything else that we want to touch, or anything else you want to touch on before we jump into the back part of this podcast and start to wrap this thing up?
I think I hit all the main points I need to get across. Of course, there's lots more to say, but I think we hit the major ones. So hit me with the next part.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's jump into the dad zone and then we're going to wrap this thing up.
I love the dad zone.
Soon. If it didn't, I will add it in post. But anyways, dad zone, 4 questions to kind of bring us down from a fun, heavy conversation, if possible. If it's a heavy conversation, if it's not, then well, these questions are just more fun. First question, and I think some dads are kind of squirming in their seats here talking about communication for a whole 30, 40 minutes and like, man, could we just get to something else already? So first question in the dad zone, Rafi, does pineapple go on pizza?
Definitely, definitely. I don't see what the argument is.
Hey, I'm sure there's been a couple you've talked to that have argued about pineapple going on pizza.
No doubt.
No, I'm just playing. I would hope that's not a real argument in marriage, guys. It's just a disagreement. You either like it or you don't. It's not that serious. Trust me. I've asked 200 plus people that question on this podcast, almost 300 now. Trust me, there's never been an argument about it. Um, you don't have to argue about it. Second question: who are 3 people, dead or alive, that you would invite over for a dinner party?
Weird Al Yankovic, definitely.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that guy is so underrated. What a talent there.
Yeah, so good.
Who else? Oh, Seinfeld, like that guy, funny guy. That would make for a good dinner party. And who? How about um what's that guy's name? Shoot, escape my memory. How about a former pro? Oh, he'd be interesting to throw in that mix, wouldn't he?
So Weird Al, Seinfeld, and Obama. Okay. It seems there's always kind of that combo of a comedian, a music artist, a president, someone along those lines. It's interesting, but cool. That's a cool combo. I would say that's a
I'd love to hear Seinfeld's take on that.
right. But there's never been a I don't think Weird Al's been mentioned more than maybe twice. He's one of the very underrated. Um Obama's probably top 10. Seinfeld's probably also underrated. Second last question. What is your guilty pleasure food or drink that you are making sure that you have that you're hiding from the kids?
Reese's peanut butter cups.
Love it. Love it.
Peanut butter and chocolate. Meant to be together. Meant to be together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then last question in the dad zone before I wrap this thing all the way up for us. What is one piece of advice that you would give to a young dad age 18 to 22 just starting out his fatherhood journey?
Just expect it to be bumpy. You know, it's okay. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna screw things up. Pick back up. Try again. It's supposed to be difficult. Keep at it. You'll get there.
If you're watching on video, you'll be able to see it. Spotify, YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, leave 5 stars, leave a review, all those things. Comment, interact, engage with the content. All helps a lot. Our CTRA for today is your takeaway. Communication isn't about winning, it's about staying connected. Your reflection is where in your relationship are you defending instead of understanding? That's your reflection for this week. And then your action for this week, not pop up. Should have popped up. Your action for tonight, ask your partner one question and don't explain yourself afterward. And just ask them one question and don't explain yourself afterwards. What helps you feel most heard by me? Ask them that. And don't explain. It would fail me right at the end here. But as you can see it here, you can download the first 2 chapters of Raffi's book, The Couples Communication Handbook, for free at thecommunicationbook.com. If you want better conversations, this is a great place to start. And huge thanks to Raffi for making marriage communication practical, honest, and doable. Dads, the way you talk to your partner teaches your kids how love works. Teach your kids how love works. If this episode helped, share it with another dad, subscribe, leave a review, do all the things you can to support the podcast. This is a Young Dad podcast. Make sure you throw away that juice box trash. Make sure you throw away your trash from your snack and keep showing up.